and they ended up saying afterwards that we were able to reconcile and work through our challenges, and all of us together, there's that word again, together, we're all better leaders. And there's a way to do that. There's one particular aspect. There's the path of intentionality called listen. It's the second one, and it's about listening more than ever before to not only the reality of what's in front of everyone, but listening to each other, to understand each other's different perspectives, to listen to understand what both each team member needs as well as what the team needs, to challenge each other in a very healthy and positive way, to think through, all right, let's listen so much so that we are even paying attention to what's not being said, what's not being heard. And in a way, that path of intentionality, like each of the other 8, the other 7, are like wells of energy. They are wells of wisdom. They are wells of guiding to walk the path that does evolve.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponto. Each week I'll bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week I'm excited to connect with Rick Cram. He is the creator and author of Plan to Be Your Best as You Navigate Pain, and a resilience coach who helps you become the most resilient person you know. He lives by his guiding truth: the level of pain must be matched by the level of intentionality. With a background as a communications expert and trained caregiver, Rick's own journey from a life-altering football injury, 7 knee surgeries, and decades of pain taught him that resilience isn't just surviving, it's transforming. His signature method moves beyond mere endurance through the 3 actionable steps: tune in, plan, and be your best. Integrated across the 8 paths of intentionality, Rick guides individuals and groups to turn pain into direction, build sustained resilience, reclaim energy, and live through purpose. Whether you're navigating personal hardship or leading through organizational stress, Rick's whole person intentional approach equips you with the proven strategies and skills and allows you to emerge more confident, empowered, and resilient than ever. Congrats on your resilience and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Carl, so good to be with you. Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this.
Likewise, and I think it's with how stressful and tumultuous the business world is lately, that the skill of resilience is more important than ever, because there's just so much more adversity out there, or things that can be overwhelming if you don't have this resilience muscle well-toned and strengthened. So I'd love to hear more about how you help people navigate pain and struggle and resilience and build this that makes them better leaders.
As I'm listening to you, and thank you for the question. It's a great question. When you're talking about people's resilience and having that well-toned, I think of how the starting point is to meet right where we are, right where any client is, where we are in with our resilience, but then pivot in this way. Look at further strengthening our resilience. In any given moment, our resilience is what it is based on virtually everything that we've experienced in the past, both personally and professionally. Whatever the pain point might be, we're looking at it through the lens of how my resilience or how your resilience looks right now. But what is so profoundly important for moving forward, and I'll share a couple of stories with you in terms of individual leaders or corporate clients, is that to pivot and be on a path to strengthen in a perpetual way your resilience, because it's the growth of and the strengthening of the resilience that you have now that is going to make all the difference in the world in terms of better navigating today's challenges and the twists and turns that are going to take place as you and we try to navigate it.
Yeah, I imagine it's one of those skills and muscles that people, you'd rather not have to exercise it and keep it toned, but if you don't though, when you suddenly need it and you don't have it, it's a huge problem and cause a lot more challenges. So having the foresight and the discipline to develop that, so when something does arise, you're able to withstand it is essential. So I'd love to hear some of your success stories of how you helped leaders become more resilient.
Very good. I'm thinking about when the Plan to Be Your Best method actually came together. The federal home loan banks came to me and they said, Rick, we're planning our leadership conference, our annual leadership conference, and our managers are experiencing pain, market conditions that they've never seen before. And they very well had a clear indication of what they needed. They needed to know how to lead themselves and their teams through problems that they've never faced before. And isn't that often the way it is? Whether someone is a corporate client that needs to navigate something challenging, or someone is dealing with chronic physical pain, such as myself, we find ourselves in a position where we're saying, I'm experiencing new challenges. And therefore, if that phrase, the level of pain, whatever the pain points might be, the level of pain needs to be matched by the level of intentionality, it begs dozens of questions in terms of how to be intentional. What does that look like? One way it looks like is to shift from not just relying on having goals and objectives and strategies and tactics as part of a plan, but switching to process-oriented goals. It starts to answer the question, right, how do we lead ourselves and our teams through challenges, no matter how tough things get? And the federal home loan banks came to me and said, Rick, we know that you, between your communications work, your experience with resilience personally, and putting on interactive programs, and you put together a program for us. And so I developed for them and for you the Plan to Be Your Best method, which has evolved. It's identified both practical steps, such as you mentioned, the 3 steps of resilience of tune in, plan, and be your best. And then these 8 paths of intentionality is how to use leadership skills and strategies, how to use communication strategies and skills to further tone that those muscles we call resilience. What they ended up doing was going through this program and mapping out basically ways for it to, the different aspects and the different facets of the Plan to Be Your Best method, and adapt them for themselves, adapt them for the dynamics of who they are as a leader, the dynamics of their individual teams, the cultures that they're living and working through, and made it their own. And that's actually a key indication of what a good leadership program will be, or a resilience program, is that it's not prescriptive. It doesn't say, here's exactly how to do it, but it helps everyone identify ways of doing it. Your way, for example. They ended up going on to dealing with market conditions that they'd never saw before, and ended up thriving through it all. Another example is a healthcare company that got together for their annual conference for the first time, getting together in over 5 years. And this is years before COVID. And they were saying, we're also experiencing market conditions and challenges that we're at risk of losing up to 70 to 80% of our business in the next couple of months. They ended up going through a 2-day Plan to Be Your Best program, again, adapted the ways to grow their resilience. And in the months ahead, they ended up not losing any business, but also one of the best quotes that they shared with me afterwards, the best comments was, this galvanized us, which makes a point that when we're going through something challenging, if we go through it together the right way, plan together, that people will grow and teams will grow stronger together through it all. And that's one of the recipes, if you will, for navigating any kind of challenge. So though there are numerous examples, including some one-on-one stories that I'll share with you, but they're seeking, when they come to me, they're seeking some kind of transformation. How do we do this differently? And they end up finding, with all of us rolling up our sleeves together, ways to actually do that.
I think it's really powerful what you said about the bringing people together and galvanizing and making it not just a leader having to get through the difficult times, but it's the team working together that gets through those periods of adversity.
Yeah.
And I can absolutely relate to that experience, because that's what happened to my family when I was diagnosed with the brain tumors when I was 15, is that because of like an extended family and community that came together and really supported myself and my immediate family, we were way closer and have much stronger relationships than we would have otherwise. Right. And I think it's a matter of the leader having the strength to bring their team in close and not be trying to keep it with distance and not trying to shoulder the burden themselves. Yeah. That is a big first step. And I think there's also just the need to, even before there's these, because you mentioned like building better like processes and systems and stuff, because when we're under stress, we default to our kind of habits, the behaviors that are ingrained in us. So having the right habits and having that community mindset and being willing to bring people together to work together on a common problem, I think is a really important combination that leads to success through these adverse periods. Whereas when leaders try and take it all on themselves or aren't willing to change the way they do things on a daily basis, the little steps in response to a looming challenge like what you described in those case stories, then it can be just a very destructive and negative experience that could result in the loss of what is like 70 to 80% of their business would be gone. That's basically the business is gone. Right. But so having that the coaching and understanding what is needed to happen between the people involved to navigate those challenges is super valuable.
Now, your personal story is a fantastic and profound example of what happens when people take a look at a challenge, come together, and grow through it together. There are very specific, very there's no perfection in it, but there are ways to do exactly that. And then that's part of what's within the Plan to Be Your Best approach. There was a small team from Burger King who came to me and said, we're going through some unique leadership and management challenges. We need a program. Walk them through the Plan to Be Your Best program. And they ended up saying afterwards that we were able to reconcile and work through our challenges, and all of us together, there's that word again, together, we're all better leaders. And there's a way to do that. There's one particular aspect. There's the path of intentionality called listen. It's the second one. And it's about listening more than ever before to not only the reality of what's in front of everyone, but listening to each other, to understand each other's different perspectives, to listen to understand what both each team member needs as well as what the team needs, to challenge each other in a very healthy and positive way, to think through, all right, let's listen so much so that we are even paying attention to what's not being said, what's not being heard. And in a way, that path of intentionality, like each of the other 8, the other 7, are like wells of energy. They are wells of wisdom. They are wells of guiding to walk the path that does evolve the planning. One of the reasons why I refer to the listen is because communication is such a major driver of change. I remember reading a book a long time ago. I believe the title is 2085 or 2084. It might have been 1984 when I read it. And it maps out what life can be like so many decades later based on the 5 main drivers of change. Technology is one of them. Transportation is one of them. Finance is one, but communication is one of the main drivers of change. And so for just whether it's in marketing and the advertising, the branding work and so forth, the strategic planning work that I still do for clients, it's taking a look at the ways to communicate and drive positive change with everyone, both within an organization and the constituents and customers outside the organization. Those same strategies that are used to create market momentum, create greater market share, also play a powerful role in navigating and driving change with challenges that are perhaps internal, or they're both a combination of internal dynamics and external market challenges. And that's what I mean by process-oriented goals. It's the way to go about this.
Yeah, I think that absolutely 100% makes sense that the communication between like leaders and their teams and the team members themselves and the organization and their marketing and branding, especially when things are challenging, is a make or break factor for it, because especially when you talk about the things that are not necessarily said, but in between the lines and what people are maybe communicating without realizing it based on body language and the way they say what they do, or the medium they use to communicate, especially from the leadership roles to their teams, that it's not necessarily one mistake, but it could be like a death by 1,000 cuts of like little tiny issues that cause friction or cause muddle the message, or kind of miscommunication, misunderstandings that compound over time. And when you combine that with the pressure cooker of the stress and the other kind of personal stressors around people's lives, that can be a recipe for disaster. So having starting with being able to listen and communicate effectively with their teams seems like a really important, or is an essential step for success. And I imagine you mentioned there's all these different aspects to the process. But what would you say is, if someone who's listening is going, I want to start like working on this, or what's like the first step people need to take if they want to start applying this right away?
Great question. And without a doubt, it begins with transforming the mindset from, all right, I'm not prepared for this, to embracing the idea that it's never too late to become able. The very first of the 8 paths of intentionality is prepare. And the essence of that is getting re-anchored in who you are, both as an organization, as an individual within the organization, and as a team. The reason why this is a place to begin is because when there are challenges, whether it's personal, professional, or within the marketplace, it upsets the sense of identity. Individually, people have been coming to me for decades when they're facing different kinds of challenges, whether it's job change or something truly profound and great loss. Sometimes they'll come right out and say, and I may have shared this with you before, I don't know who I am anymore, and I don't know what to do about it. The good news is that there's a lot to do about it, and quite quickly, really. But for any good progression of planning, to move forward through a process of planning, again, in your particular way of planning, or my client's way of planning, is to get anchored in who you are and what your values are, because that's going to create a foundation for being able to move forward. That's the place to begin. But to your earlier point, is not to go it alone. Carl, did I share with you that story of before I went into the hospital for my 6th knee operation, a total knee replacement?
I don't think so.
I mean, I'll briefly tell. I can't recall. It's a great story, both personally and professionally. And this is going to be surgery number 6, a total knee replacement. I'm 40 years old, or about to become 40. And the hospital said, come on in for a workshop, an hour-long session with a nurse and physical therapist to get prepared for your experience of having a new knee. What it's going to be like in the hospital, what it's going to be like going home and for PT. It was led by a nurse and a physical therapist. They passed around the prosthesis, and there were about 20 of us. I was the youngest person there. Probably the other next youngest person was 60 years old, and all of whom were about to get a total knee replacement. It all ended with the physical therapist asking, so how many of you play tennis? And several people raised their hands. I hadn't been able to play for years, but maybe 7 or 8 people raised their hand. And so she asked, how many of you plan to play tennis after your total knee replacement? A few did. So she promptly said, well, for those of you who are stupid enough to go back to playing tennis, you have to only play doubles and add 2 phrases to your tennis vocabulary. One is, nice serve. The other one is, that's yours. The moral of the story is when things are changing, don't go it alone. Team up with someone or other people. Get a new team. Perhaps it's just a time to switch and find a new team that you've never had before, and add some new phrases and thinking to your game. And that's really that starts to create the change that's necessary to be able to not only just start to move forward, but to even get unstuck, because a lot of individuals, teams, and complete organizations can be stuck because of what can be overwhelming challenges where they don't necessarily have the answers or necessarily know the path forward to drive positive change.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that story and connecting with me today, Rick. If you enjoyed this episode of the Human Connection Podcast, please leave a review, and share it. If you'd like to connect with myself or Rick, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.